learn about how Android apps work and how you can build your own app. So here we are bringing you this Compose campaign to help you get started with your Android development journey. By the end of this whole long journey of this Jetpack Compose campaign, you will be able to build your own app and publish it on Play Store. Not only this, but you will also learn about the best practices followed in industry during Android development and using Jetpack Compose. So now let's talk about how to build UIs with Jetpack Compose. So now I will like to hand over to Sujeet Ghosh.
Good evening, everyone. I am Sujeet Ghosh, and I will help you go through the various views of the uh, Android Studios. So, when we are here, so first let's start with the views of text view. So, text view. Basically, text view is the most basic tool to use in a coding language. So, when you use text view, there is simple ways. So when you are going to write text, you just have to start with the coding basic, like text, the T capital, T capital text, then bracket, use small text to enter the text that you are going to use. So while entering text, we'll use the double colons to you for entering the text, like hello, and then we'll use so by this way you can use a basic ways you can basically use this for the text views. So you can see here the hello Android is visible to us. Then we can also change their font size by basically putting comma and entering size in it. So entering the font size, we use basically .dp to changes sizes like this. Like I want to change the size to 35 .dp. So this is basically an enter, and now we'll just go and refresh the browser and the size will change. We can also use alignment text alignment to set the alignment of the yes. So we can use text alignment to set the alignments of the text view. So basically, it's a tool we use for alignments, and we can also use bold tool, font tool, italic tools, and rest. So for the next view, we will be going to the how to insert an image or and a button. So for a button, first we have to go to the Java, sorry, resources. First, we'll be going to the resources, then to the values, and then strings. First, in strings, we will be adding a name, a special strings to this, like this. We are adding a name string called rule, and then closing brackets, rule. And we will going back to the main menu. This I have created basically a basic roller dice app to see what make it a basic for the buttons and a fair how to insert images. So in this app here you can see in this space the buttons we have to how to insert a button. Okay, then first of all we will be inserting button by basic buttons on. So we will be inserting button basically was okay. So first we will be adding the so first we'll be adding on click on the result. So basically
एक्सक्यूज मी
on
सुजीत, आई
yes
थिंक
yes
तुम्हारा जो डाइस रोलर वाला स्क्रीन है वो विजिबल नहीं है.
okay
सो कैन यू प्लीज रीशेयर योर स्क्रीन?
yeah. Is it visible now? Hello, is it visible now?
Yep.
Yes, it's visible.
So let's start with the basic things when you're inserting a button. Okay. So while entering a button, we will first use uh button uh button attributes. So by entering a button attribute, then on click, then we have to use this. Use then so this is basically how a button looks like. First, we have to use on click, then result. The result basically is that we have to what result we are going to use. Then we will using text. What text? So text is saying what in the this button the rule is written. So first we will be going to the strings XML to add a rule string so that we can use a button in the raw base. Then we will going back to the mainstream activity. Then we will be rowing. Then we will adding button on click result. So in the dice we have six random little results. So there are 0 to 6 random so that computer can select any from 1 to 6 and then text string resources and then we have to add basically like this string from the resources. So basically, we just added a string to the our raw resources. So then we will be adding over here in the role to what string we are using. Then dot string dot rule. So now our button is ready to use. Basically, we just added the string from the raw to the front end. Now, how we are going to see how to add a image view. Basically, how to add an image view. First of all, we'll see in the image description. In the image, first we have to add a painter, which basically represents what we are going to insert, and content description is what we are going to use it for. Like for the result, in this I have created a variable so that 1 to 6 result can be counted by any of this. Then painter, then painter resources. So basically from which we are going to extract the resources. So how to extract the resources? We are going to use, yes. So from this you can see image resources, which I have created a variable over here. In this variable, basically we have to add 6 images for the 6 sides of the cube. So how to add an image? First of all, I have to go to the resource manager to this. Basically, I have added an images from this. So to add a new image, you just have to go add resource from the module and then import drawables. From this, you can add your all the images and any other things from your computer. Like this, I have selected this image to add that I want to add. Okay, then I will choose next, then import. So basically, it will help. I have already imported the dice in this. So basically, this way you can add an image to your XML file, to your file. Then from that, how to add an image. So first, I want to add substitute this one number to a image. So I will choose dice one for that. So pointer dot drawables dot dice one. From this, I can add an image or any other things from this basically. So yes, from the result you can see the image is also added and the button is also added. Now I would like to call for Varin for the rest of the conversation.
So, hi everyone, how's everyone doing? I'm Varin. I'm the Android lead for the Delhi Technological University in the Google Developer Student Clubs. Now that we know how UI elements are placed on our screen, we would further move on to the session by learning how to test the different UI elements and see how the different functions of our Android app are working and if they are working properly or not. So, Sujeet, if you could just can remove your screen and I'll present mine. Yep, thank you. So I'm just presenting my screen. I hope that my screen is visible. So,
Yes, it's visible.
so does anyone know here what is testing exactly? Can anyone respond to it? Okay, so since none of us here knows what testing is, let me just clearly define it. Testing is the process where we check if what code we have written is working properly and also all the UI elements that we have placed on our screen are responding the way we want them to. Now, in Android, we have a feature in which we can automate our testing, meaning thereby that it is not necessary for a single person in our app to check that if everything is working. We can write functions, and the functions will test for us if the things are working properly or not. So, let us look at an app and then see how we are testing that app. So here, let me just expand it more. So here we have a tip calculating app, and the basic functionality of the app is that like first we enter the amount of our bill. So suppose we are entering 4455 or any random number for that matter, and then we can enter the percentage of the tip that we want to give. So if I write 50%, now we know that the tip would be 22 in any currency. So what will it output? It will output the tip amount that we have to give. We can also have a feature that if we provide something in decimals, so example, if I give an odd number and the 50%, I can also round it up with this switch that I have placed in the app. So that is the basic functionality of our app. Now, if we think about testing the app, what we are going to test in this app, the first thing that would come in our mind, that is the tip calculation being done properly. So that is one thing we have to test. And the second thing that we have to test would be that the numbers that we are placing on these text boxes or the edit text elements, are they giving this, are they working correctly and giving the correct output here, or is something wrong being printed in the final output? Now that we have decided that these are the two things we have to test, in Android we have two different kinds of tests. So the first kind of tests are the local test, and the second kind of tests are the implementation test. Local tests are the tests which serve a purpose of testing our logic and functions. So we derived two scenarios. The first scenario was that is the tip being calculated properly? Like it involves maths and logic, right? So the first test or the local test would check is if the tip is being calculated properly or not. And we'll use the implementation test to check our UI, that when we enter the amounts in our text boxes and whether we select roundup tip or not, the tip is being displayed in the UI properly. So first, let's look at local tests. So now, when we have to create a test in Android Studio, what we have to do is that there are three directories. The first directory is for our app, which is com.example, and followed by the name of the app, which contains our UI and the main activity, which we saw in the first session, that what main activity does is like, it's like the main function of any program in any programming language if you have exposure. And if people are not familiar with what main activity is, let's have a refresher on it. So what main activity does is, when you are doing a programming language, you have a main function which signifies the starting point of a program, and main activity is analogous to that main function. It is a starting point for our application. So main activity acts as an entry point for our application, where we can define all the UI elements using composable functions, which we saw in our previous session. And similarly, we have defined the UI of our app by using different composable functions, which declare that the first calculate tip will be displayed, followed by the bill amount, then the tip percent, and finally the tip amount will be displayed at the end of our screen. So now we know the basic structure of our app. To test our app, we first have to create a class in the test directory of the app. Now, since I'm first writing a local test, which is again reminding you that the local test is used to check if my function of calculating the tip is working properly or not, I have to go in the test directory given here, and I have to right click on it and select that new option, and I have to go to Kotlin class and file, and I have to define a function that would help me test my functions which are being used in the app. So I've already written a class, and the class name is tip calculator test. Since we only need one test here, let's name the function calculate 20% tip, no roundup. The function's name should be signifying what the test is actually about. So we can say that calculate 20% tip, no roundup would signify that 20% tip of some amount would be calculated and roundup will not be available for this test. Now, while writing a test, we know that we have to write a function. The important thing with the function here is that it has to be annotated with @test notation. Now, what are annotations? This annotation would tell our compiler, when the project is being compiled, that this function is a test function and would be used for testing purposes. If we create a test function in this test directory of the app, the compiler would know that this is a local test testing our logic. And the the other directory where we are going to create a different test or the instrumented test is the Android test directory. If we create a test, if we create a class here and in that class we create a function, the compiler would automatically know when it is annotated with the test notation that it is an implementation test, and would be and that function would be used to test a UI. So let's look at our local test. We first create a variable called amount and assign it a value of 10. We also create a variable of tip percent and assign it a value of 20. And we create a variable expected tip which gives us our actual tip after calculating a tip, which would be know that 20% of 10 is 2. So our expected tip would store the answer. Note that these are val variables and not var, and because we don't want them to be mutable. Now we calculate our actual tip, which is being calculated by a function in our app. In the main activity, there's a function calculate tip, which is being used to calculate our tip in the app. Here is the function. You don't need to know its implementation. You just need to know that we are passing this function with the amount, tip percent, and if the amount needs to be round up or not. And what it returns is the tip, which is calculated by this function. So while writing the test, we are using that same function to check if the tip that is being calculated is correct or not. And now after the function returns the actual tip, we store it in a variable actual tip. Finally, we use the statement assert equals. Now what this statement does is when two values are given to this function, it would assert if they are equal or not. If they are equal, the test case would pass, and if they are not, the test case would fail. It is a very simple function, but we have to know that the libraries which are used for testing purposes are the JUnit libraries, and assert equals is a function from the JUnit library. And the other important thing to know is that for writing any function which you want that to be as a test function, you have to annotate with @test notation. Now we have known what a local test is. Now let's try to run that local test. How are we going to run the local test? You can see that there's a small green play icon right here next to the class. So you can click on that and you can click on the option run tip calculator test to run all the tests that you have written inside the class. And then the compiler would run the test, and in this case the test passes. So compiler would show a green tick beside the test name which you have written. This is how we can write a local test which tests if the logic in our code is correct or not. Now we know how to write local tests. Now let's look at the other form of test, which is the implementation test. So for implementation test, what you have to do is go in the Android test directory and create a new class. So similar procedure, you have to right click on the directory, click on new. Just a second. Sorry for the interruption. Let's just carry on. So we were done with local tests. Now we have to learn about implementation tests. So for implementation tests, we have to follow the same procedure. We have to go to the Android test directory, go to the new section and create a new content file or class and name it any class, name it by any name which you want. And I have named it as tip UI test because we're testing the UI. So now first, as we know in main activity as well, what we set is we set the screen. We use this onCreate function to set the screen with the set content function whose lambda takes in the theme function that the app possesses. So similar to that, for testing the UI, we have to first set the UI. So the boilerplate code of setting the UI is you first get the compose test rule by create compose rule function. Since this function is very abstract, we are not going to explain it. You just have to remember that this part of the code is helping you set the UI. What here matters is that how we are going, how the test is going to navigate to the different parts of the UI and enter in certain inputs. So this part of the code is used for setting the UI in the function. The function name is calculate 20% tip, and it is also annotated with test notation, which tells the compiler that the tip is correct or not. compiler that it is an implementation test. Now, since we have set the UI, we have to perform something to check if the UI is responding to our needs properly. Now, the compose test rule variable, with this variable and using the on node with text. Now, let me just okay, so if you saw the app, let me just if you saw the app, there are there are two text views. The first text view is label does has a label of bill amount, and the next text view has a label of tip percentage. So what we are doing is here what we are doing here is that with the test tool on node with text function, we are entering the label of a text field to navigate to that text field. So first we will go to that bill amount text field, and in that text field we will write the text 10. Then with the tip on the tip percent text stream, we would write the text 20, and then we would go to the tip amount, and then we would see that if there's a text box saying that there the tip amount is $2, right? Because that's the basic functionality of our app. We would first write here 10. Let me show you by performing manually this implementation test, and then I show you how it performs automatically. And here if we write 20, the output should be tip amount $2. That should be our output in the UI. So that is what we are basically performing with this on node with text function. And now, since our UI test has also been created, let's see how to run this UI test. Similar to how we run local tests, beside the class, there's a play button which we can click on, and the UI test would be run. And it would show the output that it passed or it. Let me just rerun it. Yep, so it says tip calculator is built. So you can run UI tests, and if they are passed, it will show that that there are no problems found. However, if there is certain error in our code or the tip amount is not matching. So if, for example, if I say it should be $1, which is wrong, the output should be $2, right? It should not be $1. So if I run that test again, the test should fail, but it's build output, and we have to see the test output. So the basic essence is that the test would fail if the wrong output is given. So we have to be very careful while writing tests that they should not that they should be simple as well as easy to understand. So while we are writing UI tests, the basic essence is that first we have to set the UI, this which is the boilerplate code which we are using, this set content code which we have also used in the main activity. Then we have to navigate to the different text boxes or the different UI elements on our screen, and then we have to assert if the output is correct or not. So while writing test functions, it is necessary to note that we are not writing the logic as to how the output should be made or how the output should be processed. We are only asserting or testing that the output which is produced by our app is correct or not. With this, I would like to conclude the testing part, and I would like to invite Shubhasai to further expand on different parts of the UI using uh, how to display scrollable lists and all. So I would like to invite Shubhasai to continue with the session.
Hello everyone. So myself Shubhasai Mohapatra, and I am from IIIT Bhubaneswar. I am the app dev lead and facilitator for this Compose Camp session. So I'll be taking the uh, part of building scrollable list. So let me share my screen. Yeah. So scrolling list or scrollable list. So can you guys just send messages in chat that how many of you have seen in apps that are using this type of list? Can you guys name some apps those are using this type of lists? Yes, Google News. Any other? Yeah. So I guess means every app that we are using these days are using list directly or indirectly. If we'll talk about Twitter, Instagram, every social media apps, they are using scrollable list. The reason behind that is scrollable list means these are very useful to gain the attention of users. So that is the reason means every app companies, those are building Android apps, they are actually very focused in building interactive and better UIs for these type of scrolls. So now let's understand what is list. So can anyone define what is list? Okay, so list is basically something that is kind of element uh, that and this just open my whiteboard and yeah. If I look at this app, so you can see this is a app in which it contains actually the list of various restaurants. So talking about model, so basically a model is nothing but it defines that each means each item in the list, what that item contains. So if we look at this single card view, we can see that it has an image, it has a name, and it has a details, like means that DSS list, and it has a rating. So these are some of the things that this single item contains. So basically this class, this data class, so data class is nothing but it it contains the means the item, it contains the variables that item of the list will contain. So the data class restaurant here defines that what each restaurant will have in its uh, what each of the restaurant will have, like images, restaurant name, restaurant details, these are the things. So this is the model. And now talking about data source. So as name suggests, data source is the place where we can input our data for the list. So we can do it in various ways. Like if we are using means cloud or any remote database, then we can collect our data from cloud, or we can use our local storage to means create a data source. So basically data source is the place from where the data for these lists are coming from. So if you look at the data source for this app, so here I have created one class, restaurant list. That is actually this class actually containing a function called get restaurant list. So what is actually this function is doing? So if you look at this function, so it is returning a list of restaurant. In Kotlin, the list of restaurant we can actually you can actually say that list of is a function that is actually building one you can say array like things, but each element of the array is of restaurant type that we have actually defined in our model class. So basically list of model we are creating we are creating and returning a list of the model which we have created. So here we initialized with various restaurants. Like we have created here how many 8 restaurants. So the name for all these things I mentioned in, I have hard coded here, and the images I have placed in the resources directories. So before that I will just show you the uh, directory part. So here the app it is the structure of an Android app in which we have a folder named res folder, or we can say it resources folder, in which we have a folder drawables. In this we actually we have to place the images, all the images that we are using in our apps. So here restaurant 1 2 3 4 till 8, we have placed 8 images in our app. And in this function we are calling these we are actually passing these images to our restaurant object, and we are actually adding these to the list of restaurant and returning by this function. So this is how a data source look like. This is a data source. This in this case we are building data source, means we are hard coding data source. You can replace this with actually with any remote data source, or any local data source. So we'll cover that in our next session, like how we can take data from APIs, or from cloud store from database like Firebase and MongoDB and all that kind of services. And these are the this is how we can build one data source. So now let's look at how yes talking about how scrollable list work. We have covered till now we have covered how a item looks like, and how we can get the data. But if we'll look at how list work, we can understand that if means the list is actually creating similar items various times. So who does that? So before compose that task was done by adapter class. So what is adapter? Adapter is nothing but it combines the model and that data source. Means it creates views for the list. Means in talking about without compose case, we can do the list by using recycler view or normal list view. But in recycler view we can use adapter. The adapter does nothing but it attaches the data source and the UI, means the single UI. It attaches the data source with that, and it creates multiple items for the respective elements. So this is how means list works for without compose case. Now talking about with compose case. So in compose we have a wonderful means what we can say like functions, that is lazy composable functions, that is lazy list. So in lazy, with the help of lazy list we can actually build both means vertical scrollable list and horizontal scrollable list. So lazy columns and lazy rows are there. So let's now see how you can build list using this lazy list. So now I'll move to the Android Studio. So this is basically this is the main activity in which you can see here that this is the restaurant app theme, and this is the surface, and inside this I have called in a function that is restaurant app. This restaurant app functions contain my whole UI. So now let's understand how I am creating this list. So first of all, what I have to do, I have to actually create uh, a functions for defining how single items will look like. Like what is means, as you can see, every items in this list have similar kind of design pattern. So I have to first define how every item of the list will look like. So for that I have actually created one uh, functions, composable functions, that is restaurant card. So what is this restaurant card doing? So the restaurant card is actually taking two parameters. One is restaurant. So restaurant is nothing but our model class. So it is taking the name, images, ratings, and the descriptions of the restaurant. And what is doing? So it is using one card layout. So in this card layout, we have used column. So inside column, we are using a image view and a row. And in this row, again, we are using column to means to display the text like the restaurant name and the text restaurant details. So this is the hierarchy. You can actually, in previous session we've covered these things, so you can actually see here like how these rows and columns are being used to create this kind of layouts. So basically we are designing this single layouts for means we can call that call like uh, single item view. So basically, using this restaurant card functions, we are creating uh, in single item views. So now we have to do one more thing. We have to pass. So now, yes. So if we look at this, so this is a composable functions that is returning restaurant list. Means this is single view, but this function will help us to build our list. So this restaurant list composition functions is giving us one restaurant list, which is a list of restaurant. So here you can see that this list is containing elements of restaurant types, and obviously modifier to modify our views. So this is as you can see that this is actually not this is not lazy list. We are creating the list using normal columns. We'll create using lazy list afterwards. So if you look at this restaurant list functions, so basically it is taking parameters, list of restaurant, and then modify. So here, as you can see, we are building an UI that is vertical in nature, so we will use column. So what we are doing is we are basically iterating for each element in this list. So restaurant list dot for each element, what it will do, the restaurant means for each element, the restaurant is the item, and it will be passed to the restaurant card functions. So means you can consider this as a for loop. In calling, we have for each loop, you can say that it is a loop. Means restaurant is the item in restaurant card, and this function is creating views for different elements that the views. But what is the problem in this kind of we can when that what will happen, this code will create, means for example, let's say you have 1,000 list. So what this will do, create view will create some performance so now we do the the function restaurant list say it is parameter uh, the and in it is you are using for means the length of the restaurant list, and this method was also iterating for until the length of the list. So what is the for example, uh, if you look at the spread, so this is three items. So three uh, so what this kind of thing does this kind of lazy list and or the recycler view does is create four means uh, they can create views till 7 or 8 items so that the resources of the phone will not be used. So this is the benefit of using lazy columns. So that if you have very large amount of items in your array of model, so in that case, no, there will be no problem in means in using the maximum resources in using the phone means the app will perform as expected. So this is the thing, this is the benefit that we get from the lazy list. And the one more benefit that we get from lazy list is that it actually don't, in this case we don't have to actually build the adapter. So if you look at the class, take the details of this you can just go this basic column and see what type of parameters it can accept. Like the modifier it can accept the alignments, like how the items in the list will align. So these are the various things you can experiment with this. And this is a very useful and important part of Android development. Like if you see in current years, in maximum number of apps are using list. And list means either it can be horizontal or vertical. Almost every apps are using list. So means how we can the better optimized or the better user means the better we can make the UX, the better is for the app or better is for the companies. So it is a very important part of Android development. So in our next we will be covering how we can build list with remote data source, like from collecting, we'll be collecting data from Firebase or any public APIs, and we'll be utilizing those data uh, to build one list. So this is the thing, means this is how a lazy list works in Jetpack Compose. You can also explore like how recycler view and all those things works. But this list part, you can just ask your questions. So talking about this is the the course by Google for Android Basics with Compose. In this code lab, you can actually check the code lab number, the unit number 3, how we can build a list. You can also check this course, and you can also build a scrollable list by looking at the tutorials that this code lab has built a scrollable list. You can refer to this. I will also share the link in chat box. So this is all, means that's all from my side for list. And yes, so here is my profile. You can just scan the QR code or go to this link to get connected with me. And if you have any doubt, you can just ask me at any platform as you wish. So that's all from my side. Thank you. I will like to call Tisha from here to conclude.
Thank you everyone for joining today's session. If you feel that related to the session that has been conducted today, or do you have any doubts related to the other session that we will be conducting, you can contact any of us, Varin, Sujeet, or me. Your names on LinkedIn, or you can just drop your questions. Thank you for joining today. Have a good day.
Who do you think even listening to us? Aman, are you there?
Hello.
Huh?
हाँ
So
हाँ
Yeah,
Aman,
he's there.
Aman, you are from which college? Oh,
Oh, he's your junior.
okay.
Okay, so thank you for attending the session. If you have any doubts, you can ask us, or else we are ending this session for now. You can also end your live stream on YouTube. However, there were no watchers for the same.
मेरा बहुत गंदा गया था ना, बस करता